All right, so hi everyone, it's me again. I mentioned that I'll be doing a series of videos on the Black Star, the autobiography of CK Gyamfi. So this is my second video. If you've not watched my first, please do. It's on my YouTube channel. I'll share the link again so you can have an idea of what I've been talking about. So why am I here? Right, I've been doing a lot of writing recently, so I think it has improved my mood, which is a good thing. And also, a few days ago, or probably even yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I I watched about 4 documentaries on movie directing. Right, I watched one on Wes Anderson, who I really admire. I watched one on Christopher Nolan, who I also really admire. In fact, I admire all the people whose names I'm going to mention. So there's Wes Anderson, there's Christopher Nolan, there's Martin Scorsese, and then there's Quentin Tarantino. Yes, so I watched documentaries on all of these people about their filmmaking process, about their art, and I was really inspired to also share the artistic process behind the creation of this book. I've always admired movie directors. I wish I could direct a movie, but it seems so complicated. I wonder when I'll get the opportunity to learn it and then to produce a film. So I really respect movie directors. It's not easy at all. Yeah, I also watched another documentary on Francis Ford Coppola, who directed the Godfather movie, or the Godfather movies, Godfather 1, Godfather 2, and Godfather 3, which are considered classics, especially Godfather 1. So yes, I'm here to share my process, a bit of it, because I'm sure this video cannot carry the weight of everything. So I'm going to share a bit of it. All right, so the Black Star, first and foremost, let's talk about the title. So the original manuscript that I received was titled "This Is My Story." So it's from the hymn, "This is my story, this is my song." I'm sure you've heard of it. Yeah, it was one of CK Gyamfi's favorites, I guess. And so he used a line from that to title his book, or to put on his book. So I worked under the title "This Is My Story" for all these years, and then there was a point where we realized that the title had to be a bit catchy, and also CK Gyamfi was no more, and we needed to project his legacy. So that is why we considered a title change. So a few names were suggested, and at a point I suggested the Black Star because I felt that he embodied everything the Black Stars were about. Black excellence, the African personality, success, and everything of that sort. So the Black Star fit perfectly, in my opinion. And luckily for me, CK Gyamfi's children, the three of whom I've been dealing with, Edwin Gyamfi, Patrick Gyamfi, and Duke Gyamfi, they all agreed to this. But there were a few issues though, because CK Gyamfi was known to be down to earth, very humble, and there were concerns that if he was alive, he would probably not agreed to naming the act of naming his book the Black Star, because it would be like he's this, representative of the Black Stars, and it will like it will uplift him to certain height or on a certain pedestal that would be like promoting himself and all of that. But we consider the fact that this is a posthumous book, and we have to honor his legacy because he's no more. So celebrating him with a Black Star seemed natural. So I think that is why we chose it, and that's why the book is named The Black Star. So yes, that's the story behind the title. And let's talk about the prologue, right? So the idea of the prologue was to start things in medias res, right? Which means in the middle of things. I've always wanted to do something like that. So when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, okay, let me do this. Now, mind you, I was going to do the whole book in a linear form because I felt that people don't know CK Gyamfi. So if you sort of shuffle the chapters about and you mess up the plot in a positive way, I should say, people wouldn't really be able to follow the story. So it has to be linear, right? I think it's only 2 chapters that break the chronology of the book. let me see if I can remember them. A Way to Play and The Beautiful Game and the Unexplained. Those two chapters sort of talked about a particular subject, and so it didn't follow the chronological progression of the plot. But yeah, those are also the two chapters, perhaps the two chapters that I really enjoyed writing. A Way to Play was on CK Gyamfi's philosophy on football, how to play, how to coach, and I actually constructed that from scratch. He didn't originally include it in his manuscript. I had to construct that from bits and pieces of information that I had. Some of them were from conversations that I had with him. Some of them were from newspaper articles about him and newspaper articles that he himself had authored, right? So I picked that and I sort of carved it into a chapter. And I also wanted to mention all the great footballers from the 50s and the 60s because I felt that people needed to know their heroes. So I felt this is the perfect chapter to introduce or to showcase all these players and their names and everything. So that's why I did A Way to Play. And the Beautiful Game and the Unexplained is a chapter on juju in football or supernatural interventions in football. So that's also a very interesting chapter that I've already done a lot of discussion of on its show on GTV. But I'll do another discussion on it hopefully very soon. So let's go back to the prologue, right? The prologue. So like I mentioned, it happens in medias res. It is in March 1969. So I always wanted to do something like this. This chapter was within the book, but I felt it could be used to start. So it's like a cold open, right? You just dive straight into it, and then you sort of get excited about the story because you want to know what is next or what is coming next. So it's set in March 1969. Originally, it was 1967 in the original manuscript, but I did some research and found out it was actually March 1969. So if you've read this book before, you realize that I wrote that he was a 37-year-old. Well, he was close to 40 in March 1969. So he was like 39, I believe. So this is a mistake because I had originally written March 1967, which would have corresponded to 37. So it's going to be corrected in later editions of the book. So yes, the prologue is about him receiving a national honor, and yeah, and I ended it with my journey with the sport began in my modest hometown of Okorase, where by the age of 5, football found its way into my life and locked the door behind it forever. So this is how I decided to segue into the first chapter. Right. So let me go through the chapters, right? Let me see if I can find the chapters here. All right. So the idea behind the chapters, and this was wholly constructed by me, because CK Gyamfi didn't have a lot of chapter names down pat. Obviously, he was just trying to tell a story. But when I came in, of course, there was going to be a bit of art in there. So I decided to write chapter names in rhyme forms, right? So there's a ball, a wall, and a brawl. There's sound foundations. There's a fling in the ring. There's graduation and intimidation. There's hustle and bustle, 10 toes and woes, an arena for the dreamer, boots and hoots, an honor with a bit of drama, peril in April, sleek, not meek, good hearts at heart, the wizard visits our yard, reborn for a new dawn, chaos in Lagos, new team, new theme, a way to play, fortune at Fortuna, learning the ropes, learning to cope, eulogized in Europe, to prove and to be approved, crowned in our own town, rain and pain, anchoring a difficult encore, an awkward step backward, fiasco in Mexico, the beautiful game and the unexplained, an appointment with the continent, unique theatrics at the Munich Olympics, a sham and a shame, and back in the heat of the sea. So these are all the chapters. There are 31 in all. I didn't realize there were that many chapters until the book was published. I was really surprised how come it ended up with 31 chapters. So I also considered an epilogue, right? Something at the end of the book. And eventually we decided that we're going to put a story there, which I was going to ghostwrite. It's about Patrick Gyamfi, who's the youngest of the Gyamfi brothers. He was actually the only one who played football under the old man. And so he wanted to recount his experiences. So I sort of had an interview with him and I ghostwrote that chapter. And it's a very interesting chapter. I gave a lot of fresh perspectives on CK Gyamfi. This is a bit of trivia for you. So you can see, as you can see, I don't know if you can see. So there's a lot of pen marks here. That was actually done by my nephew. I don't know whether he was trying to sign an autograph or not, but and I thought the book had been ruined, but it's still in good shape. So yes, like I mentioned, we have the prologue, and like I also mentioned, this book was very linear in its progression, right? So let me go through the chapters and give you an idea of what I'm talking about. So a war and a brawl, right? It starts from 1929, and that's how it starts. So it starts from 1929 when CK Gyamfi was born, and then it goes through his childhood. Sound Foundations explores his school days. A Fling in a Ring explores his adventure with boxing, which was in the 40s. Graduation and Intimidation, also set in the 40s. Hustle and Bustle was set in the late 40s to early 50s. 10 Toes and Woes is set in 1951 specifically. An Arena for the Dreamer is set in 1952. That is the opening of the Accra Sports Stadium. Boot and Hoot is also set in the mid 50s, right? An Honor with a Bit of Drama is 1953. Peril in April is 1954, I believe. Sleek Not Meek is 1954, 5 thereabout. Good Hearts at Heart starts from 57 and ends in 1960. The Wizard Visits Our Yard is 57. So as you can see, Good Hearts at Heart is 56. The Wizard Visits Our Yard is 57. So there's a natural progression there. And then there's Reborn for a New Dawn, which is around the same time. Chaos in Lagos is 1958. New Team, New Theme is 1959, the formation of the Black Stars. Fortune at Fortuna is also 1960 when he went to play in Germany. So you can see the progression there. Learning the Ropes, Learning to Cope is early 60s when he returned from Germany and was taken through the ranks. Eulogize in Europe is 1961. To Prove and to Be Approved is 1962-63, about when he became national coach. Crowned in Our Own Town is 1963 when we won the AFCON. Rain and Pain is 1964 when we participated in the Olympics. Anchoring a Difficult Anchor is 1965. An Awkward Step Backwards is also late 60s, I should say. Fiasco in Mexico, it's also late 60s, 1968. So you break into The Beautiful Game and The Unexplained, which goes back to 1940 something. So that's the only break, well, the two breaks in the book, which breaks the chronology, but it doesn't really affect the plot, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. An Appointment with the Continent zooms straight back from 1940s to 1970, right? Unique Theatrics at the Munich Olympics is also early 70s. A Shame and a Sham, mid 70s. Back in the Heat of the Seat is where we jump from mid 70s to 1982. Now the reason why we jumped was because there wasn't enough original material from the 70s to construct a chapter, and I always wanted to make sure I desisted from constructing new chapters because it felt like I'll go it alone and I make mistakes, so I didn't really construct a lot of new chapters. So that's it. There's also the story behind the story, which sort of chronicles my relationship with CK Gyamfi. It's an essay that I wrote, which eventually made the book, and I'm very grateful for that. So that's basically it. Each chapter segues into the next, so you find that it's very seamless and it's easy to read. Like Cameron Duodu said, it's an unput-downable book. You can't put it down. That was really, really interesting. And he says it's a page turner as well. So I hope you also find it to be a page turner. And it also has a lot of images, right? Great images from the past, which you really enjoy. And so I've explained the title, I've explained the chapters. Hopefully next time I can do something we call the anatomy of a page, or of an event in a book, so that I can break it down, why I chose certain words, why I chose certain ways of presenting the content, why this picture is here, that kind of thing, the process behind a certain page or a certain chapter. So this is why I bring to an end this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back with more The Black Star, Autobiography of CK Gyamfi. And before I end, I did a thread on Twitter about football books in Ghana. You should check it out and buy all of them. I'm sure you really enjoy it. From Asamoah Gyan to Mohamed Polo to Kwesi Appiah to Ken Bediakun. And buy all of their books. I believe that they are really, really good. So yes, my name is Fiifi Anaman, a co-author of this book. And see you next time.